The goal really is about learning how to feel what you feel without allowing somebody else's reactions to dictate your life. So basically, to be unapologetically authentic, period.
Hello, this is the May Be Mindful podcast, and I am your host, Hannah May. I'm a mother of 6, conscious birth instructor and educator, spiritual growth facilitator, and certified hypnotist. This podcast is about inspiring hope, expanding awareness and consciousness in order to revolutionize the way we live and experience our lives. You can expect thought-provoking episodes each week spanning a range of topics, drawing from both my own journey of transformation and healing and working with others. I hope you find this podcast to be informative, refreshing, illuminating, and instrumental in your own soul's evolution and growth. Let's jump right in.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my podcast. I'm Hannah, and today I really want to talk about, and I polled y'all on Instagram. If you're over there, you know. And the votes came in, and just by a fraction, envy was in the lead over releasing shame. So I want to talk, because it's like a real toss-up for me. Like, both of these topics I feel really strongly and passionately about. Shame is a really big one for a lot of people, and it's so insidious, but so is envy. And actually, interestingly, they're very much connected. So I want to talk about how you become increasingly bulletproof in the face of envy, jealousy. I'm going to talk about the difference between the two because there is a pretty clear distinction. They're not the same thing, even though they're used interchangeably quite often. And how you navigate other people's projections, criticism, and the discomfort of what that force feels like, the force of envy, because it's extremely destructive and divisive, without becoming hardened, defensive, closed off, or shrinking. And that really is the challenge, I find, because it's such a bully. It's like such a spiritual bully, the energy and the spirit of envy. If you've ever found yourself shrinking, if you notice it in your life where certain people that tend to be more domineering or narcissistic or whatever, just in any aspect of your life, if you are somebody that notices that this is a theme that shows up in your life where you have a hard time giving yourself permission to shine in the face of other people's dissatisfaction or envy, and it doesn't always appear as envy, it can manifest in a lot of different ways that just feel bad. So if you've ever had a dream that you've shrunk, if you've downplayed your success, if you've not reached your potential because of the fear of disapproval or somebody else's volatility, this is really common, or maybe even just dimming your joy because other people don't like that you're happy because they're not happy, or becoming smaller so that somebody else can stay comfortable, then this conversation is for you. The goal is not to become numb to this. Like, it's not to become inhuman, because when something feels bad, it's natural that it hurts a little. That's part of being human. And there's something really beautiful about that. And there's something in that that makes us as creations like very lovable, I believe. But the goal really is about learning how to feel what you feel without allowing somebody else's reactions to dictate your life. So basically, to be unapologetically authentic, period. So let's talk about the difference between jealousy and envy, because they're used interchangeably, and there's obviously similarities. I mean, jealousy in a very human sense is an extension, and it's very connected to envy, but jealousy actually can serve a purpose. So jealousy can be holy in a sense, and it can be righteous in the same sense, in the same way that anger can. So if something unjust happens, anger and righteous anger seeks to make that right. Obviously, we don't want to stay in a place of jealousy or anger, because then that becomes toxic in our systems. It's designed to put us into some type of action to correct something, essentially. So jealousy says what is mine is being threatened. So like a husband or a wife protecting their marriage or their relationship. It could be a parent protecting their child, or even a creative project, something that you've poured into, that you've created, that's yours, that you have a right to safeguard and protect, right? Obviously, this can go many different directions, and jealousy can be very unfounded. It can be fear-driven. It can be insecurity-based. I'm just saying that jealousy can be righteous, and it is designed to serve a purpose at times. So healthy jealousy protects something that is sacred and important to you. And from like a theological perspective, the idea of divine jealousy as a characteristic that God attributes to himself is designed to protect that relationship. The relationship between creator and creation. And this is an expression of intense love and a desire to want to pour into. And so like in a marriage covenant, for example, the design, the ideal is that we give each other fully to the other person, and there is a constant flow and an exchange of love, of selflessness, of service, of giving, of fidelity, of loyalty, right? I mean, that's the ideal anyways, from a higher and holier perspective. And there is an expectation from the other person in that dynamic for exclusive loyalty. So if that feels threatened, real or imagined, it can cause jealousy. So anyways, jealousy can move us toward restoration, basically. That's the goal. Envy doesn't do that. Envy just creates division and destroys. Like envy is really different. It says, you have something I want, and I resent you for having it. It attacks because of it. And there's an inability to celebrate somebody's good fortune if it threatens something that it brings up for that person that they are wanting and they don't know how to get. And oftentimes it's unconscious. It's like an asleep person. It's a driven state. It's not necessarily computing to them, I'm intensely envious. Maybe they have the wherewithal to be humble and take a look at themselves, but usually envy and humility don't really go hand in hand. So if they do, and they can at least acknowledge their struggle, and they say, okay, this person, I feel really threatened. I feel really competitive with this person, but it still sort of gets the better of them. But oftentimes I find people they act out of envy, and it comes out in just a really mean-spirited way. If you are a woman, and a lot of my listeners are women, you have experienced this without a doubt from other women in your life. This is really common. It's not as common in my experience to experience this as a woman from other men, although in some very rare cases, I find those interesting, but usually it's women experience it from other women. And from what I understand from talking to men experience this from other men versus other women, which makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Most envy does not announce itself. It flies super low under the radar, sort of like fear. We've talked about fear in other episodes, how it masquerades, how it essentially denies itself. It disguises itself, but it shows up, and it might look like passive aggressive comments, like gossip. Who does she think she is? Like, oh, must be nice. Okay. Can it be nice? Is it okay if it's nice for somebody? Like, why does that have to become a criticism? Or if somebody else is successful, when people want to tear them down. Or I find it really entertaining if somebody comes up with some kind of an idea that they hit the jackpot with, and it's like, oh, I could have done that. Well, yeah, but you didn't. And this person did, and they're insanely successful because they took an initiative on it. So where is the celebration for somebody else's success? I find that if we can start to become happy and really revel in somebody else's success, it actually elevates us, and it can shift us into success and abundant energy to be more receptive to that which we're wanting. If we can support somebody, then we are rising with them, and we are on the path and in the energy of reception to that same type of abundance. So really, when jealousy in a very human sense or envy comes up and we feel competitive or we feel threatened, which is usually at the core of it, there's usually some sort of low self-worth at the core of it. It's a value issue. It's an identity issue for people who are doing or walking in that. If we act in that, when people act in that, the issue is that what it does is it closes them off from the thing that they're ultimately wanting, and it creates more of a divide and more of a gap of like where they are versus where they actually want to be. And it's really hard to be in a place of reception if you're ungrateful and critical. Like that's just super low energy and super low vibe. It can show up a lot of different ways. One way that I've experienced it show up is exclusion. Just like straight up snarky, snark, mean girl exclusion. Minimizing, dismissing, sometimes outright sabotage. I've been on the receiving end of that, mainly in my high school experiences. I had this one girl that literally, for whatever reason, I thought she was my friend, like had it out for me, straight up stole my boyfriend because she was willing to do things that I was not willing to do, and literally sabotaged and targeted multiple of my relationships with close friends, and somehow intercepted them and became their best friend and then turned these people against me. And it was the most fascinating thing. I was like, what in the world is going on? It was really hurtful at the time. It was really distressing. I was a teenager and I didn't understand it. And so for me, my journey with this, because I grew up with 6 brothers, okay? Like I grew up with a bunch of boys. Boys don't really do this. They don't play this bullshit. Not that they can't be envious also, but it was just a dynamic that I wasn't really familiar with. So when I started running into this in grade school and middle school and high school, it felt so disturbing and damaging and abusive to my system. I felt so easily wounded with this stuff. And so for me, I really had to learn how to rise in that, because the fact of the matter is, if you have something that other people want, like whatever that is, you're going to be the recipient of that at some point. If you are a kind, honest, sincere person, if you're a creative person, if you carry a lot of light, any kind of gifting, if you come from success, if whatever it is, there's always going to be something that somebody else can be envious of. Whatever it is, it can make you a target. I've seen this especially around success, around talent, around even walking and embodying peace. I mean, you're going to find your people when you embody authenticity and you shine brightly, but this is where this threatens other people. So the goal is essentially to stay on that path and to become more embodied in those qualities, to give yourself permission to shine unapologetically, because most likely you are embodying something that they haven't given themselves permission to access, that feels off limits for them and they don't know how to get it. And so if an automatic response is to criticize you sharing something in some way or just some sort of authentic expression, well, that's not really about you. Like the tendency is to want to take that shame on and carry it. And if you have a history of shame burdens or anything like that, inherited generational shame, that can be super, super triggering. And so the real problem is not their envy. The real problem is what their envy activates in you as somebody on the receiving end of it, especially if you grew up needing approval, if you are the type of person that grew up keeping the peace, avoiding conflict, needing to stay in line and to maintain that, and not having that approval can be a real threat to your security. So it actually feels very scary to the system. So it's a real challenge to not shrink for somebody that errs on that side of it. And I find that people who tend to be more on like maybe the codependency spectrum somewhere, or the people-pleasing spectrum. Not that that's a set thing, because that's something that you can heal from and you can absolutely overcome and become very empowered with and get on the other side of. Those people are more likely, I should say, to be the recipient of envy than the perpetrator. So when somebody's criticism feels like a survival threat, then it's like you can really default, as these are old patterns. Like, it's really easy to default into suddenly asking yourself, oh, should I be quieter? Like, the automatic response, if you notice, the automatic response for you is to like contract, shrink, get a little smaller in the face of that, hide a part of yourself, dim, don't sing as loud, don't be as joyful, don't show up as who you are. Then that means that somebody else's discomfort has authority over your life in some way, and they have more power than they should, and there's an imbalance. So how do you become more bulletproof with this? So the goal is not to become totally unaffected, because you're human. You're going to notice criticism. If you have a kind heart, if you have a tender heart, then you're going to feel rejection. It's not going to feel good. But we can start to rewire and repattern our thinking and create new patterns around this. It's not to stop feeling that, because naturally that's going to feel bad no matter what. But there's a difference between I feel that, I notice that, and now I'm going to take some type of action to safeguard and honor myself, and either have a boundary, remove myself, or get to a place where you can brazenly like say, fuck you, I'm going to do it anyways. There's a difference between I felt that and now I'm in service to that. Like, I obey that disapproval or that bullying or however it's showing up, and taking it as a cue and letting it dictate your life. So bulletproof doesn't mean hardened, and it's a progressive journey. This is about growing, becoming stronger. It's about connecting with our true identity and understanding and really starting to see our value. We talked a little bit about last episode about asking to see ourselves through the eyes of truth, through the eyes of our soul, through the eyes of our creator, from our higher self, and borrowing that perspective and that view to start to reconnect with our identity and to become very rooted and grounded and established in that. Because when we really know that, we don't place so much importance on what other people say, and we can start to really see very clearly, like, oh, this person's operating from intense insecurity. This person has a major deficit or a gash in their own being. And that's actually really sad. It doesn't mean I have to like go hang out with them and be like, oh, can I bring you a Kleenex? But we can at least have compassion and then be brilliant anyways. When we're rooted in God and in identity and in the truth of who we are, then the attack has nowhere to land. It literally, it's like it bounces off of us. And here's the interesting thing. When you don't shrink, you do that person a favor, you might be surprised the respect that you will actually win and earn. Not always, but you become somebody that then they can look up to, because what you've done is you've disproved their deep-seated belief, maybe, that something is not available or possible. Because if you don't shut down and instead you continue to expand, first of all, you're so much more of service in expansion than you are in contraction, right? You get that. So when that happens, you set the bar. You show people this is possible. You become and can become an aspiration. You can become an inspiration simply by showing up authentically. You are of service in more ways than you might realize, because of the example that you set, because of the courage that you exhibit, because of the peace that you walk in. And this is so much bigger than we realize. And so there's a fear in us that has to be overcome in standing in the face of the adversity of disapproval, right? But this is where victory is. We wouldn't have the need for courage if it didn't feel uncomfortable, right? And this is where we have the victory. So the belief that needs to change underneath it. So it's all well and good to have this conversation, be like, yeah, F everybody, just do it. Just be your greatest, best, wonderful self. Like, be the best version of you. That's great. But if that's not happening, like it's not enough to just sort of self-talk your way into it sometimes. And oftentimes, we're carrying unconscious beliefs like, if I shine, I'll be rejected. If I succeed, I might lose love. If I'm powerful, I'll become a target. If I'm wealthy or successful, other people will hate me and resent me. If I speak up and I share my views, I may be criticized or judged. If people are uncomfortable, I must be doing something wrong. Like, no, it doesn't have anything to do with you. Unless you're actually doing something inappropriate to them. Like, their discomfort has nothing to do with you, and it's not your problem in the slightest. It's not your job to try and manage that for other people. You have other things to do. If you're just trying to stay up in your lane and do your thing and do your dance and sing your song, their discomfort has nothing to do with you, and it's not your issue. You don't need to carry the weight, the burden, and the responsibility of that. That's very codependent, and it's not healthy. So these beliefs keep us pretty restricted. I mean, there's a lot of rules there. There's not a lot of room for freedom of expression because these beliefs force us to choose approval over authenticity. This is a losing game every time. It chooses comfort, which is very temporary and ultimately very uncomfortable, over calling, and fitting in over becoming. Like, fitting in might not be a thing, you guys. You're going to have to possibly break the mold. And that is going to make some people uncomfortable. And that's okay. That's okay. Ultimately, like I said, you are being of service. The thing is it's not enough to just think these thoughts away, because the thinking of our thoughts that we're doing is happening in the conscious mind. And these deeper beliefs are in the subconscious. So if we want to address the subconscious, we do got to go subconscious. We can't just keep trying harder. That exerted effort is just pretty wasted effort most of the time. It's not, I shouldn't say it's wasted. It's valuable in the sense that we get to see what doesn't work. And hopefully at a certain point we go, okay, I gotta try something new, right? And so here's what I want to leave you with. Joy is not an offense. Your peace is not an offense. Your success is not an offense. Your healthy marriage is not an offense. Your wealth, your gifts, the things that have been imbued into your being to serve and connect with humanity with are not an offense. They're incredible things. And no doubt you see other people using their gifts and you're in awe. And so if any part of you is feeling restricted and holding back, just know that that is your inheritance also. That's waiting for you. And if somebody feels threatened by those things, that belongs to them. That's not your issue. The world does not need less light. The world does not need more contraction. The world does not need less truth. The world does not need less courage. It needs more of all of those things. And really what I find it comes down to is an inner negotiation. It doesn't have anything to do with the other person. It doesn't have anything to do with out there. It's really about letting go of this inner negotiation and granting permission. So that is. There's so many other things that could be said about this, I'm sure, but this is what came forward today. Lots of love. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Maybe Mindful podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us grow and improve. For more information, resources, and exclusive content, visit our website at maybemindful.com or go ahead and follow us over on Instagram at maybemindful. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please give me a follow, screenshot the episode, and go ahead and tag me until next week when I bring you another thought-provoking and inspiring topic. Until then,